Tonight on KTCA Reports, a front row seat on an historic trip to Russia. You'll follow Senator Paul Wellstone on what began as a search for his roots in his father's homeland and soon evolved into a first-hand look at the social and political revolution underway in Russia. Plus, the plight of Russian Jews living in Minnesota and the many soon to join them. There's lots to talk about next on KTCA Reports.
Major funding for this edition of KTCA Reports is provided by the McKnight Foundation, responding to the needs of individuals and communities. Additional funding is provided by Ryder, Bennett, Egan, and Arundel, providing timely, aggressive, and cost-effective legal services.
In the next hour, we'll retrace the steps taken by Senator Wellstone and his traveling party, looking at what they learned and who they met. The trip began in St. Petersburg, where Wellstone met with city officials and with the U.S. consulate staff. An overnight train ride brought the group to Moscow. Wellstone met fellow Minnesotan Walter Mondale at a Radisson-owned hotel for a conference between Russians and Americans. The senator delivered a speech on federalism. Day 6 was filled with an 8-hour, 4,000-mile flight over 7 time zones to reach the city of Khabarovsk in the Russian Far East. Wellstone toured the Jewish autonomous region, met with anti-communists, and searched for his family's roots. Senator Wellstone joins us via satellite from Capitol Hill in Washington. And here in our studio is his traveling companion, Professor Nick Hayes, Russian studies expert at Hamline University in St. Paul. Well, Senator, it looks like you were in the right place at the right time for the second year in a row. What's the biggest impression you're left with from your first trip to Russia?
Well, I think it's in part a person, a woman, Valentina, that I met on the Trans-Siberian Railroad. Her courage, her feeling for people, but also her despair and her concern about what's going to happen in the country, I guess that kind of represents my own feeling about it as well. That's what I probably remember more than anything else. I don't know about Nick, but I'll never forget that conversation
exchange
with her.
Which we will see later, we should say.
Can I just follow up on that, Paul? Weren't you surprised by the depth of anger and the complete loss of hope that you kept encountering again and again from the people?
Well, I was. I mean, I didn't, and it wasn't what I wanted to see or wanted to hear. And I've said many times, Nick, I guess I will go to my grave believing that people can change the world and change history, and I still believe the people in what used to be the Soviet Union can do this for the better. But I came back with a lot of despair and a lot of fear and a lot of worry about what's going to happen.
I think this is
that was based on that anger that I heard.
This is a subdued Paul Wellstone we're seeing somewhat. Senator, and Nick, will get back with you in just a moment. But first, it was just 1 month ago that Paul Wellstone set foot in the then Soviet Union. And though you can take the senator out of the country, you can't take the senator out of Wellstone. KTCA reporter Fred DeSam-Lazaro was with him.
In more ways than one, Paul and Sheila Wellstone's first day in Russia must have felt like a step back in time.
I wish I could read the announcement, huh?
A year after his stunning elevation to the world's most exclusive club, Senator Paul Wellstone and his wife were once again anonymous. Just another pair of tourists visiting the Tsar's Winter Palace in the city that used to be called Leningrad.
Where's Alex?
That's Alex Kahn, the interpreter. Anonymous or famous, this was still Paul Wellstone, and he'd spotted some kids on a field trip, something no politician can resist, whether in St. Paul or St. Petersburg. But as Paul Wellstone, the teacher, if not the politician, would understand, the history lesson needed to be finished first, before the group could deal with the friendly-looking foreigners.
My name is Paul Wellstone, and I'm a United States Senator from the United States of America. And I'm from the state of Minnesota. From Minnesota. It's beautiful, but there's lots of snow and it's cold. But my father was from Siberia. From Khabarovsk.
Khabarovsk, not Khabarovsk. It was lesson 1 of the trip. Lesson 2, Khabarovsk is not in Siberia. It's in the Russian Far East. This was just day 1 of a profoundly educational trip for Minnesota's freshman senator. It was a trip Wellstone paid for himself, one he'd long planned to visit the land his father left back in 1914. But arriving at one of the century's most historic moments, it was hard to pass up the chance to meet some of the players in this new Russian order.
And these are Russian political leaders from all over the country.
To do that, he looked up a stalwart of the old American order. Former Vice President Mondale was in Moscow, attending a conference on democracy.
We have a special guest with us today, the United States Senator from Minnesota, Paul Wellstone, who is my United States Senator. He is a member of the Democratic Farmer Labor Party and represents what you might call the populist, reformist elements of the American political scene.
Populist reformist is a term commonly applied to the emerging leadership in the Commonwealth of Independent States. Natural allies, it would seem, of Paul Wellstone.
If one thinks of the political character of Paul, I mean, here is a grassroots populist, young senator, anti-establishment.
Nick Hayes, Hamline University Russian Affairs scholar, accompanied Wellstone and helped arrange the trip's itinerary.
The people that defended democracy against the coup are his natural political types. These are the people of much the same mentality as him. And I thought the best thing that Paul could discover as he visits Russia is really a model for how you simply reconstruct a democratic political process.
If you're the center of the Democratic Russian movement, let me first of all thank you for your courage. If you were to give me some concrete advice as to ways in which you think the United States can be most helpful, what would be your priorities to support the democracy movement?
Ilya Zaslavsky, a founder of Russia's democratic movement, said he has his eyes on a part of America's peace dividend.
For example, of using the money which was spent to the military need, to the help to Russia, it would be great if this money will go to some foundation which will initiate the small independent business in Russia.
For example, nuclear weaponry, to take that and put it into a fund that would go for capital that could be used for small business development here. Is that
Yes, of course.
I like the idea.
Another idea Wellstone grew to like is creating a kind of expert Peace Corps, a program seemingly easier to implement since it would involve less capital.
I mean, I know you're anxious to have capital investment, but do you also need men and women from the United States who are experts in these areas that come here and work with people in St. Petersburg? Is that kind of what's called technical assistance, or what I would call human talent, sorely needed?
Дело в том, что как первый шаг следует рассматривать капиталы и технологии.
We need capital investment and technology, replied St. Petersburg's foreign affairs chief, But more urgently, Russia needs humanitarian aid, basic food and medicines, a painful reality, he said, for many.
This humanitarian aid is accepted as a kind of humiliation.
I wondered about that. I wondered about that. I wanted to get your advice about how you think we can be most helpful.
But in meeting after meeting, Wellstone was told, without this short-term aid, Russia's flirtation with democracy could wind up short-term too.
Наши потребности, в общем-то, ясны. Это прежде всего продовольственная помощь.
The food aid, of course, is the top priority.
As one who'd rarely ventured into foreign policy, Wellstone seemed to enjoy this foray into international diplomacy. Concerns he'd faced earlier about personal safety and potential political fallout were soon forgotten.
I've been very careful not to overpromise or make myself out to be a bigger deal than I am. I mean, the discussion was, do you go at the time where people in my own country are now saying, let's focus at home, on the home front, which have been my issues, healthcare and jobs and education, you know, the environment. Do you then all of a sudden spend almost 2 weeks in another country? I mean, that's the discussion that people went through with me, but I don't think we can sleepwalk through this history. We can't stand on the sidelines.
But Wellstone was forced on some occasions to stand on the sidelines. After getting nowhere in earlier attempts to meet with some of the history makers, Wellstone learned that many big-name political leaders were holed up in this conference in Moscow. It sounded like a spirited DFL convention, and Wellstone clearly seemed itchy to join in, even if he couldn't understand a word. In the take-charge impromptu style that's his hallmark, he decided then to go himself to a back room and ask for a meeting with former Soviet Foreign Minister Eduard Shevardnadze, who was in the hall.
So, I mean, I just needed a couple of minutes. I tried to mainly just be talking to lots of different people. So maybe I'll wait. If there's a coffee break, I'll wait. You know, I mean,
The Shevardnadze aide was apologetic. The meeting didn't happen. The downside of visiting during a revolution is the big shots are busy, trying to sort out who the big shots really are. Nowhere was this widespread confusion more evident than at the City Hall in Khabarovsk, where Wellstone came for a reception and meeting with the city's acting mayor.
everybody's bustling around here.
The senator was kept waiting several minutes, while just outside in the hallway, an argument raged in Russian.
What did you say, Nick? They're arguing about who should be involved?
The two candidates for who should be mayor out in the hall arguing over who gets to come in.
Good day.
Good day. Good day. Good day. Senator Wellstone.
Очень приятно.
Nice to meet you and my wife Sheila.
Пожалуйста.
After reaping the rewards of the hallway brawl, a cheap ballpoint pen, the acting Khabarovsk mayor painted a picture only marginally different from others that came out of Moscow and St. Petersburg. Like those European Russian cities a whole continent away, Khabarovsk has its share of suffering, especially among the elderly. Essential food and medicine are in short supply, at least at decent prices. And of course, there is the big compounding factor, much colder temperatures, steadily in the -20 range during Wellstone's trip.
I walk around the house in warm boots.
Even the deputy governor of the Khabarovsk region isn't immune from the shortage of heating oil and natural gas. But the Soviet Far East, she told the senator, was developed like the American Far West, by rugged, hardy folk. If there is humiliation at receiving humanitarian aid, she said, there is also a resolve to keep this dependence on it brief.
I think everything is in our hands. We have to get the thought through our heads that we are not going to survive just on humanitarian aid, but tomorrow and the day after. How much can we expect to be given? Why aren't you working yourselves? They'd ask.
I understand. I understand. Well, I hope that things will go well for you in the future. It's been a great country and great people.
Back to our discussion now with Senator Wellstone and Nick Hayes. Senator, I interviewed you the day before you left, and you really had no idea what you were going to see once you landed on that other continent. Fred used the term confusing. Did it seem like confusion was really what you were witnessing?
Well, in a way, yes. I mean, the only constant right now in what used to be the Soviet Union, Kevin, is change. And I mean, we saw change every day while we were there. I mean, it's hard for the people there to live there. I mean, everyday life is hard. And when you're traveling around, it's not easy. I mean, you can't count on anything, and things changed all the time. So there was confusion. I think in a way, that confusion was helpful in that we ended up just meeting with a lot of people in different parts of the country, from St. Petersburg to Moscow to Abarsk. And I think having a chance to talk with people, just kind of coming up to people and talking with people, which maybe will be in later on in the documentary, was the best thing that I could have done.
Well, can I throw the question further, Paul? Did it strike you that maybe Russia had no government? The confusion in place after place, virtually nothing was being administered. There was confusion as to who represented what, that in effect you were in a situation of really no government on the verge of anarchy.
Yeah, you know, now that I think back on it, Nick, I think that in many ways that was and is what is happening up to a point. At first I thought, well, if I had gone on an official trip and gone through the embassy, maybe it would have been easier to meet with people at set times. You told me that things were very much in flux, and I think that's very much what was happening. And for my own part, I mean, I could completely understand why it was so difficult to be able to meet with people, because history is exploding around people who are in positions of leadership right now. And my heart goes out to a lot of them. I know people are very angry, but I think a lot of them are trying just to sort of keep up with what's exploding around them. And it's a difficult time to try and govern now.
Well, if I may use a metaphor, I mean, that meeting we just saw when we saw Shevardnadze and a few others, and we were watching them attend. I mean, it was almost like asking Jefferson and Ben Franklin to take a break from writing the Constitution for a chat. I'm not exaggerating. It was that serious at that moment.
Yeah.
Just by virtue of your being there as a United States Senator, even though it wasn't an official visit, was there something, did you worry that some sort of promise was almost implied by virtue of you asking these people what they needed? Were you sort of offering more than you could really deliver?
I wasn't, Kevin, offering more than I could deliver, but yes, I did worry about that, that by being there and by people kind of laying bare their lives and just sort of publicly talking about what was happening to them, that there was built into it an expectation that somehow as a United States Senator I would be able to change things, make things better right away. I come back now to our country and I feel a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? I feel under pressure to try and do something. There's a number of things that are going to happen over the next several weeks, and I want to be a part of them. And I really believe, I've said it many times, maybe enough times to deafen the gods, that we really are making a very serious mistake if we do not figure out a way that we can play a positive role in relation to what's happening in Russia and the other republics.
Will anything that you saw, any of this translate into any policy that you're contemplating?
Absolutely. I mean, policy, membership for Russia and other republics in the IMF, starting with, and efforts to stabilize currency, direct humanitarian relief, medical supplies, food assistance, technical assistance, talent, just people talent assistance. I think there are a whole range of things that would be concrete, that would be practical, and would make a real difference. I mean, there are no guarantees, but I think people in the country are really looking for a signal from us.
Paul, what did you get out of the trip? I mean, we can talk about these policy issues, and we've discussed them, but what did you feel happened there that absolutely could not have happened to you, in your view of the crisis, had you not actually been in Russia? What specifically did the experience give you?
I'm less, I guess, Nick, intellectual about it. I feel more personally engaged because all of the articles that we read in the papers, I can translate into personal terms. The people that I met, the people that I believe in, the people that I want to succeed. I know that if the people there are successful and can build a democracy and a different economy, and it'll take them decades, then it'll be so good for us and our children and grandchildren. I know that, but I guess it's more, I actually think about the people I met. And so it all has become personal to me, above and beyond the fact that it was my father's country.
Senator Wellstone, this was kind of your maiden voyage to Russia, but Nick Hayes, you've been there many times over many years. What did you sense? That, you know, Paul can't really say this is different because he has nothing to compare it to, but how do you, what differences do you see that you hadn't seen before?
I had not been there, Kevin, since June. And I just simply put, I was absolutely aghast that a situation that had been moving towards a crisis is in fact beyond the crisis. The catastrophe has virtually occurred. My main concerns are, number one, Russia has no government. I mean, nothing was working. And then beside that, parallel to it, is there's a revolution of social anger going on everywhere. People are angry, they're mad, they're humiliated.
You never had felt anything quite
I had felt for the last year that there could be a military coup, there could be a right-wing movement, and that the society itself had the resources to withstand this. But what I felt this time was a mixture of anger and despair, just kind of ready for an elemental uprising of some kind.
We have a question from a caller. Nancy from Minneapolis, I think, has a question for Paul Wellstone. Go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you. Senator, I was wondering, what was your impression of the people's personalities? Was there a sense of humanitarianism, generosity? What was your impression?
Oh, well, thanks for the question. Well, just to go back to Valentina on the Trans-Siberian Railroad, just incredible humanity, Nancy. I mean, I tend to love people, but just unbelievable humanity, even with her own difficult struggles. I mean, she talks so much about other people that were hurting. The other thing that I really loved about the people that I met was this kind of philosophy and sense of humor, even about the most difficult of times, how people could laugh at such difficult struggle, and yet they were able to. I'm not taking away from what Nick said about the anger and about the seriousness of the situation and the sense of urgency I feel, but it's really people with a great deal of inner strength.
Okay, we will see some of those people right now. Being a populist is by no means limited by geography. Senator Wellstone found an audience for his Minnesota-based political beliefs, even though he was 6,000 miles from home. Fred DeSam Lazaro reports.
Some of this stuff to see would be great.
I wish we could see some of it.
It was in keeping with his populist image as much as the family budget that Paul Wellstone chose to stay in rented apartments rather than hotels, which are expensive.
This is the offices.
But for much of the first few days, there was little time to spend with ordinary citizens.
But what we are going to do is do everything that we can. The city is going to do everything it can to cut out what they call the mafia element here. What they mean are the speculators.
Much of the time in Moscow and St. Petersburg was spent in meetings with one official or another, from conference hall to city hall.
My name is Paul Wellstone. I'm a United States Senator from...
Only once early on did Wellstone have a chance to sample opinion from the street. And in these few minutes, about the only thing he learned is that the folks here in the food line don't trust those politicians and the officials at City Hall.
All this humanitarian aid is nothing. It doesn't reach us. These deputies, members of the city council, they're stealing. They're just pocketing all these things. We have nothing to feed our children with. Every morning I wake up with a terrible headache. The people here have been slaves for centuries and will die slaves.
From Moscow, it was an 8.5-hour non-stop flight to Khabarovsk, 7 time zones east. A chance to chat with more ordinary folks and to resolve to do even more.
I think that I'm going to be careful not to do too much of the official kind of thing. I'd like to get some help in trying to locate my aunt or maybe cousins.
but I like to do something spontaneously. I want to just go around town, and I want to, since Alex Kahn is here with me, I just like to drop by and talk to people and tell them why I'm here. Every time I've mentioned my father was from ours, people say, really? And I just would like to learn more about the community. До свидания. Let's go. The first year that we moved my dad and mom to Northfield because they both had Parkinson's disease, we took them out for Thanksgiving. It was snowing, it was cold, and my father was all dressed up in his winter coat and his hat. And he started laughing, and I said to him, why are you laughing? He said, this weather in Minnesota reminds me of a Barisk. Now I know why I said that. What's the equivalent of American of how is it going? How are you doing?
Как дела?
Could I just sort of say, how are you doing?
You want to say it in Russian?
Yeah.
You want to try to say it in Russian? All right, sure.
Yeah.
Как дела?
Как дела?
Как.
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 Yeah.
Дела.
Dela.
Dela. D-E-L-A.
Okay. Как dela.
Как дела?
Okay.
Dela. Make the stress on the last syllable. Как дела?
Как dela.
Как дела?
Как dela. Paul Wellstone. I'm from the United States. My father was from Bavaris.
Мой отец родом был из Баварии.
Как dela.
Khabarovsk is a city of 600,000, and everyone, it seems, walks or takes a bus, which is where Wellstone began meeting his country cousins.
How is it going? Как dela. Hi.
If this young civil engineer knew any more English than the questioner knew Russian, she'd probably say not fine at all. In reality and in Russian, she said she fears the economic chaos and for her own job security.
I don't know what the new year holds.
There was the familiar litany of complaints and concerns about the economic and political uncertainties, the conversations abbreviated by the bitter cold.
До свидания. Your hand is warm. Can I hold on to it?
There's clearly no tradition around here of politicians coming around in 20 below temperatures to say "Kak de la."
What's going to happen?
There has been a tradition of not talking to outsiders. Paul Wellstone was the first foreigner Valentina, a veteran railroad waitress, had ever spoken with.
I think that there will be war, a civil war. There will be total devastation and total chaos.
You really worried about the possibility? You really believe a civil war could happen?
Yes, I think so. Look at what's happening. The prices, they are rising and rising and rising. Only chaos will come of this. There is crime, rapes, murders, robberies everywhere.
But if people are hurting like this, don't you think that Yeltsin and the new government will try to do something for the people?
Now, I do not believe anybody.
But you didn't have freedom. But I guess your point is, what good is the freedom if people can't eat?
No, you are right. You cannot eat freedom.
In a sentiment shared among many Wellstone spoke with, Valentina hearkened back to just a few years ago. There may not have been freedom, but there was food available in state-run stores.
We worry about everything. I am afraid for the children and for the old folks, the elderly.
Do you have children that live?
Wellstone did get a chance to visit with some of Khabarovsk's hardest-hit citizens, escorted by a local democratic activist and journalist.
The heating is very bad here. Therefore, she's wearing so many clothes here.
The Wellstones were visibly shaken when they visited the two-room dwelling of Anna Gutina.
How can you get by? How do you do it?
Как вам удается жить?
Говорите громче ей.
Как вам удается жить?
Я привыкла уже за войну.
I'm used already. I've been to war.
Я за войну привыкла.
I've been to war, so I know difficult times, and the war made me adapt. I can adapt.
Nice to meet you.
74-year-old Anna Bitoya was able to entertain the visitors a bit longer. She's a widowed mother of 3 adopted children with whom she no longer has contact.
This is you and your husband? You were and you are beautiful.
With a pension of 170 rubles, barely enough to buy 2 pounds of meat at commercial prices, Bitoya must depend on her paltry rationed allotment of essential foods.
На завтрак у меня я варю ложку рису, это мне нужно после операции. Стакан чая.
I boil it and
Хлеб с маслом. Вот это мой
a
завтрак.
piece of bread with butter. That's my breakfast. На обед.
А на обед я супчик
For
варю.
dinner I make some soup.
Ну, если есть мясо, кусочек мяса,
Well, if I have
курочки,
a
грамм
little
10-20,
piece
не
of
больше.
chicken, maybe 10 or 20 grams, I put it into the soup. Otherwise, it's just.
И стакан чаю.
And a cup of tea. And that's
И
my
вечером
dinner.
также вот чай,
And in the
кусочек
evening,
хлеба.
again, I have a piece of bread.
Потому что больше есть нечего. В
Because there's
магазине
nothing else I
пусто.
could eat. The stores are empty.
Ну, потому что каждый день мы ожидаем чего-то еще хуже.
Every day
Вставать не
we
хочется.
wait for something worse and worse
Утром
to happen.
устаешь и не знаешь,
You
что
wake up
делать.
in the morning and you don't even want to get up because you don't know what the day is going to bring you.
While the elderly struggle to get by, the days are dawning brighter for some people in Khabarovsk. They shop at this farmer's market. It's far better stocked than markets in most European Russian cities.
Is the meat too expensive now, or can people afford it?
Конечно, конечно.
Yes.
Yes, it is too expensive. But what can you do? Only the mafia can afford it.
There's more here and at a better price than St. Petersburg or Moscow, but if you can't afford it, you're not here, and unfortunately, many people can't. I had a lot of people tell me today, I'm here, but ordinary people, regular people, working people can't afford this.
This elderly woman on a 50-ruble monthly pension seemed priced out of the farmer's market. She seemed even more perplexed at suddenly appearing in the spotlight. Why am I being photographed, she asked. I'm not begging. I'm not begging for anything. There may be a growing two-tier system of economic apartheid in Russia today, but when it comes to dignity, Wellstone was told repeatedly, there are no have-nots.
Joining us now to talk more about life for the average Russian citizen are 2 Twin Cityans with Russian roots. Mark Stepakov owns computer financial businesses in both countries and travels to Russia every few months. Milor Sturua has been in Minnesota since April, lecturing at the Humphrey Institute. He also writes a political column for a Moscow newspaper. Gentlemen, we're talking about sending money to Russia to help the people. Mark, do you think that that money will actually get to the people that need it so desperately right now?
I'm not sure about it. I think that the charitable contributions and money have to be sent, but they have to be directed to the right people. First of all, they have to be distributed through the churches in order to reach the to individual people who really need it. I think also, in a way that you help Russians, you have to contribute not only in a way helping with the money, but also by helping them create the infrastructure, a business infrastructure, through participation in the process. I think that for example, the city where I'm working is St. Petersburg, has the largest potential in entire nation. It's basically Peter the Great built it as the window to the west, and it has a very talented pool of people, qualified people who can work and do a miracle for you. There are a lot of industrial base. It's a huge cultural center.
So you see what's going on here, though, as an opportunity.
I think it's a
in its own way.
huge opportunity which we are missing right now, and it's maybe historical opportunity, unique in a way.
A red window here.
I mean, I certainly agree with Mark that you have this immediate crisis, a profound economic and fiscal crisis, but of an extremely potentially wealthy country. I have a question that I think Senator Wellstone would appreciate your answer to. You saw an interview a little while ago with Ilya Zaslavsky.
Right.
Mayor Sobchak of St. Petersburg basically sent to the senator the same idea. Send us aid, but we want to pay for it. That is, we want to pay in rubles somehow to create a capital development fund. Do you understand? It was in part to keep their pride, that they're not just taking handouts, but also to somehow turn this around for a capital development fund. Does that have any sense?
It does, because first of all, the people are very eager to work. There's a lot of qualified workforce and eager to work with, and I would say with Americans in particular, because Americans are are very big missing parts in Soviet Union. There's a lot of businesses and individual businessmen from Western Europe, from Germany, from Japan, but a lot of people asking me why there is not just a few Americans.
Let me bring you in on this conversation. You have family in Russia?
Yes.
What are your concerns for them?
Well, my family maybe is not an average Russian family, because both my sons are representatives of our upper class, so to speak. But still, even for them, after the shock therapy started to bite us, it's very difficult to meet the ends, because the salary is, even their salary, and they make quite a lot of money, is not sufficient enough to cover all the expenses. But Senator just showed us his knowledge of Russian. He asked people, "Как дела?" The whole world is now asking us, "Как дела?" And the answer is bad, very bad, very, very bad. But it isn't sufficient enough to ask us, "Как дела?" You have to come to our help, to our rescue.
We have a caller on the line, Jan from Minneapolis, who wants to ask that very question. Jan, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Your question?
Yeah, I had an original question about humanitarian aid, and I've heard about the mafia taking away from the people. Is there an organization such as a Red Cross, or do we have a UN agency that is helping implement aid? And what can the people in Minnesota do? Who can they contact? Who can they give food or money to?
Do we have answers?
First of all, the Red Cross and CARE are administering aid as an international organization. And there are several other local organizations. Our sister city project with Novosibirsk is organizing a medical shipment of supplies. Several of the churches here are organizing activities of this sort.
Organizations,
That's
yes.
right.
Yeah. But again, the distribution again is the problem. And in this video, we saw a woman talk about the mafia. Is that really a problem?
Yes, but the Russian mafia isn't an American mafia. Your mafia are just the criminals. When we in Russia use this expression mafia, we mean also the bureaucracy. We mean old communist structures. We mean new emerging entrepreneurs who are very much disliked by the population. So they call all of them mafia. So you have to distinguish.
I got a specific. The Wall Street Journal said yesterday, Miller, that organized crime is primarily, in terms of the relief effort right now, is a lot of it in the airports, St. Petersburg, Moscow, are the old communist bureaucrats. I mean, literally, they've gone from being the communist apparatchiks, the whatever, bureaucrats.
And
they're actually the ex-communists.
They are hitting with one stone, two birds. They enrich themselves, and they make people more angry toward new regime, toward new government, toward democracy. So they are, it's a political and at the same time economic subversion.
Another caller from Judy tonight. Good evening, Judy. Your question or comment?
My question is, it's actually kind of a two-part question. What do the American people, Russian people, how do they think of the Americans, and how Gorbachev was so popular here in America, but not very popular in his homeland? Is President Bush more popular in Russia than he is in America right now?
Okay, let's take the first question. First part of that question first. What do the Russian people think of the American people?
Well, basically, American people were allies of Russia during the World War II, and a lot of people have very good memories about American people. And I think right now there's more question being asked why there's no American people, no American presence on the market, why they're not here. And that's basically, it's shifting, the opinion shifting towards the worst part to me. You know, it's have to be changed.
We're about out of time here, but if you have any advice, is that we, our government, as individuals and as a group, we need to be moving on this now. Now's the time.
I think we should take the actions immediately right now, and mostly the private and public businesses. Private businesses and public have to organize and direct their effort towards Russia, and particularly to St. Petersburg, where the place to start with.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us. Your comments certainly give us a different appreciation, I'm sure. Time now to shift our focus to a select group of Russians who are making a new home in Minnesota. They are Jewish. Since 1987, more than 1,500 Russian Jews have settled in the Twin Cities. 700 more are expected to arrive this year alone. Most of the new immigrants come from Moscow, St. Petersburg, Kiev, and Minsk. Just over a year ago, KTCA profiled one such family, Michael and Sophia Rom. Here's an excerpt of their story, narrated by Dan Olson.
After a 6-month search, Mikhail Rom found work as a computer programmer for a local insurance company.
You put an S there.
That's quicker than average for Soviet refugees. Many are highly skilled professionals, but their language, culture, and credentials don't readily apply here. Although he's glad to work, Rom has taken a big step down from the seniority he had acquired in the USSR. In fact, many Soviet immigrants take a step down in their standard of living, having left behind a relatively comfortable middle-class lifestyle.
It's all the same wood.
What kind of wood is it?
This is a walnut case. Walnut case.
For Sophia Rom, shopping has gone from long lines in the land of shortages to window shopping in the land of plenty. A skilled pianist who taught music for 8 years, she has neither a job nor a piano.
Those Jews who are coming to the Twin Cities area are bringing with them not only their hopes, but their skills and their beliefs and all of those things which make our community, I think, a much more healthy and diverse and interesting community than it would be without them. My goal is to get them involved in our community and involved in our religion and our culture.
Does anybody here, are there any children who know how to sing the 4 questions who might have learned in school?
Gatherings like this one are part of the effort to realize that goal.
There's a girl there. Do you want to come up?
But a more important investment by the Twin Cities Jewish community could be the free admission in Jewish schools to children of new arrivals. At 8, Julia Rom knows far more about Judaism than her parents.
I
don't care if a person becomes highly observant or not. What I do care about is that they have a cognizance and a personal comfort level with being Jewish, and that they have a belief that this is a worthwhile value to perpetuate through the generations.
Joining us live in our studio is Mikhail and Sophia Rom. Welcome. Well, when we first saw that, when that was at the time that was broadcast, you didn't have a piano or a job, and now you have both?
Yes, now I have piano, and now I have a job. I work an assistant teacher in Torah Academy. I work with New American kids. I work in Jewish Community Center, and I work there like a New American Program Assistant, and else I have a music group, which was called JCC, New American Kids on the Block, and I conduct and direct it, and also I give piano lessons.
So you're real busy.
I'm really busy now, yes.
What's been the hardest part of your transition?
You know what? Now it's already 2 years how we came here, and even now we can understand how hard it was. And first problem when we came, now we can understand it was English. You know, we could speak English in Russia, but when we came in America, we couldn't understand why nobody can understand us. And every step, it was question for us. You know, in Russia we worked. Here we had to start from zero. We had to try to write resume. We have to go to interview. When I came here, I never drive car before. And I understood that without car, I can't get anything. And even go to the store, I can't write a check. Every step, it was hard. But now, you know, I think we adapted.
One of the reasons why you came here was because of your religion. Has the way you practice your religion changed in any way since coming here?
Sure. You know, in Russia I was teacher, and for me it was impossible to go to synagogue and even think about it. And when we came here, we decided to send our daughter Julia to Jewish school. And you know, now she's our teacher. And even in a couple months when we had this Seder practice, what was taped. And for us it was a big surprise that Julia asked 4 questions, because it was like 4 months how we were here. And we're really glad that we can get it now.
Senator Wellstone, we want to bring you in this conversation via a caller, Steve. Steve has a question about Russian Jews, I understand. Good evening, Steve.
Yes, Senator Wellstone. You said you liked the idea of using the U.S. peace dividend to help Soviet small business. Why wouldn't you be in favor of having the Soviet peace dividend instead of the U.S. dividend? And what about American small businesses? Why not use the money for us instead?
Well, with the Soviet peace dividend, if I understand you right, Steve, it's just not, right now, what you have in that country is just complete economic disintegration. And so I think it's a little unrealistic at the moment to expect the people there or the government there to have an enormous amount of money for capital investment. I do think there's enormous human capital in that country, very skillful people, and I think eventually it'll be a very successful country economically if they can make the transition. And I guess that gets back to the second part of your question. I don't think it's either or. I think this is crisis intervention now. This is not tens of billions of dollars. This is an infusion of some humanitarian assistance and some support for people there. And I think if people there do well and they can build a different economy and have a democracy, then what's going to happen is we're not going to have to be spending all the money on the weapons. They won't have to, we won't have to, and that money can be invested in our own economy. I never said that what we do is focus just on the people there. We have things to do in this country, and I think we should, and I think if we're going to jumpstart our economy, by the way, Steve, part of what we're going to have to do is do it through an investment-led recovery. That's going to be both public investment and private sector with, I think, a strong emphasis on small business. Our fates are intertwined, is what I think of the two peoples.
Some of those peoples who are now living in Russia will be coming to the Twin Cities. Michael, what would you say to other people who will be in the position that you're in, other Soviet Jews who are coming here? What advice could you give them?
I know for sure that these people will face a lot of difficulties. And first problem is English, because if you cannot explain what you want and you can understand what people telling you, it's very hard time. And second problem, it will be to find job. Without job, you feel very bad. And now it's hard time in America, and hard time for American people to find job, and it's very hard for new immigrants. Mm-hmm. And I can tell that in Russia, it's problem to find new job, but if you have job, you secure it, and it's not so difficult. American people used to this, but Russian people feel very bad if they are out of job.
If you had to do it again, would you come again, though?
I can tell for sure, for all immigrants who are coming, they did right decision. This is great country, this is great land, and they will be happy here, but it's take a little time. First time will be hard.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us. Lest we forget, the original mission of the Wellstone trip was to learn about his personal past by visiting his father's birthplace. Fred DeSam Lazaro shows us how that search for his roots went.
Paul's father, Leonard Wellstone, was born Leonard Wechselstein. He spent his early years in Khabarovsk, where his father established a hat business at the turn of the century. Leonard Wellstone left in 1914 for Harbin in China, and from there to the United States.
His family was trying to stay one step ahead of the pogroms, persecuted as Jews. Very excited about the revolution of 1917. He would have been 20 then. His parent was ready to come back, and then his parents wrote him and said, don't come back, the Bolsheviks and communists have taken over. He hated the communists, never could go back, never saw his family again.
Persecution didn't entirely end in the United States for Leonard Wechselstein. He went on to work for the U.S. government. Part of the effort to cope with it was the name change and a disavowal of his past.
I was born in 1944. Soon we moved into McCarthy period. And if you were Jewish, if you were from the Soviet Union and you were working for the government, you just didn't speak Russian at home. I mean, people would accuse you of being a communist. So I never learned the language. Have you ever heard of Minnesota?
Штата Миннесота. Слышали о таком штате? Как? Миннесота.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. How has your business been?
Как дела у вас идут?
Нормально.
Good.
Has it been good? Good. What are you selling?
Что вы продаете?
Шапки.
Hats.
Oh, hats.
Nice.
So Paul Wellstone came to Khabarovsk with little to go on. He did meet a hatter and well-wishers like this woman who advised the senator to visit his father's grave and tell him that he'd been here.
And even take some soil, some ground from here and bring into your father's grave.
I will do that. I will do that.
Russian soil will mean a lot for him.
Russian soil I will bring back.
Trying after generations and a whole revolution to uncover information requires more than word of mouth, certainly more than 3 days. The Wellstones did visit the train station, one place Leonard Wellstone certainly came to, if only to leave town. But attempts to reach the address bureau, which was supposed to be in the depot, were unsuccessful. It might have led to the family address.
Organizing the history of Jewish archives in this community.
At the 11th hour, there was a lead, possibly.
It was 30 families here in Khabarovsk area before the revolution. And they organized a community.
Yeah.
And this community constructed a synagogue. And some people of us was in the archives of Khabarovsk area. And they find the documents about this synagogue. And they know that this family who constructed immigrated to Harbin.
Yeah.
And that's why he asked me about all Jewish families.
Their name
here.
was the Wechselstein.
I don't know exactly this name, but maybe if you will...
Another frustration, but Wellstone, the seasoned Paul, was apt to spin positive on the experience.
I didn't really find the address of where my grandparents lived or where my father lived, but I came back to my dad's home. I spoke to a lot of people that live here in this town. I focused on the kind of issues that he cared about his whole life, people who were hungry, people who were suffering through economic times. So in a way, I honored my father.
And chances are he'll be back. Khabarovsk, it appears, is going places. The U.S. plans to open a consulate here in the near future, and embassy officials in Moscow have already asked Wellstone to lead the delegation at the ribbon cutting.
We continue our discussion now via satellite with Paul Wellstone and his wife Sheila in Washington. Well, the first question I got to ask is, did you bring back any of that soil? Did you get through customs with soil from Khabarovsk?
I couldn't, the ground was frozen. I couldn't get any soil. But I did go, know better. But I went back to the cemetery and I did talk, I went there and I just followed through on what the woman advised me. I told my dad I'd been there and to believe he listened, but I didn't have any soil.
Did this bring back a lot of memories of your father for you?
A lot of memories, a lot of memories, a lot of good memories. Is the best thing, I can't put it in words, it's one of the best things I ever did in my life was to take this trip with Sheila. I'll just say it that way.
Did this deepen your appreciation for your Jewish heritage in any way?
I think that's always been there. I kind of grew up on Abraham Heschel and grew up on my father's philosophy and my mother's philosophy, which I think was kind of a mixture of Judaism and justice. So I think it was always there. I don't think the trip so much brought that home to me as it did just more about the country and the people in general, be they Jews or not Jews, and my dad.
Just trying to track your dad, where he lived, any family still there, and so forth. You got a real taste, the two of you, for just what the bureaucracy in Russia is all about.
You want to go?
Right, we sure did.
Sheila, what was that like?
It's just, as Nick was saying earlier, I mean, it's at this point in time, Kevin, it's just things don't go smoothly. I mean, there's a lot of disintegration, and the bureaucracy certainly is very slow if it's working at all.
Sheila, I interviewed the two of you the day before you left, and at that point you said, gee, I don't know if we should take food or what.
Right.
Did you wind up packing your own supplies there?
We did take a lot of, just dried fruit, instant oatmeal, that kind of things, hot chocolate, coffee, so that we knew that we'd have, some things, because we weren't sure what to expect when we got there.
It also looked like you were wearing your coats inside a lot when you were at Khabarovsk. Is that it, and a lot of the other people were too?
Well, actually, the custom there is you take your coat off when you go in. It's almost an affront to people if you don't. So we would go in, and I would forget to take my coat off, and I was immediately asked, "We'll take your coat." They have a coat check right inside the door of every building. So you take your coat off regardless of what the temperature is.
What was the biggest impression you were left with, Sheila?
I was really struck by, I felt like I was in a different time warp, especially when we were at the train stations, being amidst the people, walking, the dress, just the way the packages were people just, it seemed to be at a different time. People were in a sense of real urgency. Every place they went, there didn't seem to be a lot of joy around us. It was just a real sense of getting where they had to go, doing what they had to do, just living every day very intensely. There was just a real intensity to get through every day.
We're almost out of time, but I guess I'd like to ask each of you what one feeling you're left with, optimism or pessimism about what will happen to the people you met?
I hope very much things will go well for them. I don't know what will happen, but I just hope we met some wonderful people, and I want their life there to be very good for them and what they want it to be.
And you, Senator? We need a one-word answer.
Both.
Okay. That's the first time and only time you'll get a one-word answer. Thank you very much to Paul and Sheila Wellstone, and of course to Nick Hayes, who sort of interpreted for us in more ways than one. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Next week on KTCA Reports, a program you will not want to miss. Our focus, gangs, cops, and courts. We'll look at the gang situation in the Twin Cities from the perspective of gang members and from the perspective of the police. What do both sides think of each other, and how can they improve relations? Our special studio discussion will bring both sides together for a frank face-to-face exchange on issues that affect them and all of us. That's Gangs, Cops, and Courts, a special edition of KTCA Reports next week at 9 o'clock here on Channel 2. And that's our program for tonight. Thanks for being part of it. I'm Kevin Berger. See you here next week for another edition of KTCA Reports. Good night.
KTCA Reports is provided by the McKnight Foundation, responding to the needs of individuals and communities. Additional funding is provided by Ryder, Bennett, Egan, and Arundel, providing timely, aggressive, and cost-effective legal services.